to this house. Bang, bang, bang. They weren't shooting. They were not. It was them knocking on the door. They just don't show up at the house and go, someone hung up here. Keep shooting. Call for backup. They go to the house. Knock, knock, knock. And door opens up. 74-year-old man. A lot of elderly people in this episode. 74-year-old man named Gary Van Ricewick opens the door. Looks creepy. He has a mugshot, so you kind of know where this story's going. Or do you? Creepy looking old man. Officers are like, sorry to disturb you, sir, but we got a 911 call hang up from here. Do you mind if we take a look? And the old man's like, yes, I do mind. I don't know what he sounded like, and I don't know what he said, but he does. I'm not going to make that part up. The old man, he's all hunchbacked. He's like, come in, officers. We had a 911 call from this house. What's going on? And the guy's like, listen, man, I don't have a hunchback, and my voice doesn't sound super weird, but I do have a unique fetish. I like cutting people's balls off, and they're like, ugh, gross. And you didn't let me finish, officer. I just did it in there. Did you see that room right there? They're like, I was wondering where that blood puddle was coming from and the moaning. He's like, yes. There's a man in there, cut his balls off, and he won't stop bleeding. The cops are like, get out of our way. Why'd you have to tell us that whole story? Cops push him out of the way, walk into the room. There's a young man sitting there with a towel in between his legs. Just blood everywhere. And his balls are sitting in a jar on the dresser. So after both police officers get done vomiting, they're taking turns. One guy's asking questions, the other guy, and he's like, okay, my turn. It's not good cop, bad cop. It's throwing up cop, not throwing up cop. So anyways, after they get done just eliminating whatever they had left in their stomach, they call for medical assistance. The dude had to be rushed to the hospital because he was dying. He just was bleeding too much. So they arrest Gary, take him downtown, and they go, what is going on here? And he's like, listen, the guy was totally willing to do it. We met on Discord. Apparently this doesn't surprise me. There's a subculture castrated, and then whatever. Then, I don't understand what the step is after that. Like, yay, my balls are gone. Like, that's a fetish you can only do a single time, right? Most fetishes are like, oh, I'm really into feet or boobs or hair. So I think we talked about that before. Like, the number one fetish is hair, and the number two fetish are boobs, because technically they're not sexual organs, but we've sexualized them. But anyway, and feet is the third most popular fetish. But anyways, most fetishes you can do over and over again. Like a castrate. What do you do? Do you fantasize about being castrated? And then that's like, whatever. That's disgusting. But then you get castrated, and then you fantasize about remembering about it? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. How that would even work. But anyway, so they get their balls chopped off. Is the moral of the moral is what happens. Now, we're back. We're talking to Gary, and he goes, this isn't my first rodeo. And literally, I used to work on a farm, and I used to castrate bulls. So I'm good at it. And they're like, apparently not, sir. A man almost died. And they're like, you don't understand. You don't understand the world I come from. You don't have the balls. And I mean that literally. Because as long as you... Wait, does that joke make sense? Anyways. Forget that. The officers are just sitting there in blank silence as Gary's trying to figure out if that joke made sense. He's like, never mind. I castrated myself, actually. I cut off one of my own balls in 2012. The world was ending. I figured, what the hey. Sat down on the bed with a knife. Cut open my nutsack. Ball rolled on out. And they go, why didn't you chop off the other one? That was my question. Why would you stop there? Maybe he had a fetish for only having one ball? He was a big Lance Armstrong fan? I don't know. But super bizarre. The whole thing's bizarre. And then he says, this isn't even the first time that's happened. And they're like, what do you mean? He goes, a while back, I rented a hotel room, met a guy on Discord. It's another reason why I'll probably never have another Discord. I met a guy on Discord, and he came to my hotel room. I cut his balls off with my knife, with my special knife. Apparently, this guy had a whole, one of his rooms was like an operating suite. He had a special table, medicines for blood clotting, special knives. So he's admitted to doing this twice. His fetish may just be fantasizing about doing it. I have no idea what's going on with this story. But he says, I did it before, And I cut the balls off, and he was bleeding, but he just got up and went to the hospital, and it got taken care of. And here's the important detail. It never got reported. And this happens a lot. This happened with the Jeffrey Dahmer case, when one of his victims ran out of the house right into the arms of 2 police officers and said, "Save me, save me. This guy is nuts." Jeffrey Dahmer, the kid was like 14 or 15. I think he was 15 or 16, but Jeffrey Dahmer, who was late 20s, comes out of the house and goes, "Oh, this is just my gay lover. We're just having a spat." Dude was handcuffed and naked and bleeding out of the butthole at the time. Jeffrey Dahmer comes out and he tells the officers, "Hey, this guy, we're just gay lovers. It's just this spat. Don't, sorry, he's a little drunk, da-da-da-da-da." Obviously underage, naked man in handcuffs with a bleeding butthole. The cops let Jeffrey Dahmer take him back into the house, where Jeffrey Dahmer then drills a hole in his brain and tries to make him into a sex slave. The cops they've been devastated by that, but they said this was the thing. We weren't comfortable reporting it because it was all in this gay subculture, and we didn't know, like, what was legit and what wasn't. Like, is this something that gay people normally do? Because the story took place, like, in, I think it was 88, 89. So there's no will and grace. The police officers basically were just like, we'd rather not deal with this. It wasn't like, oh, we hate gays and we hope this guy's going to get eaten. They're like, we don't know what they're into. We don't know what's going on. And so they let him go back in. And I think that's what happened this first time. This guy went to a hospital with no testicles, and the doctors could obviously see that he was castrated. And they didn't report it to the authorities. They didn't say, hey, we have a guy who just came in here who voluntarily had his balls removed. You may want to find out who did this because they're practicing medicine without a license. This guy almost died, and it's most likely he'll try it again. But they didn't report it. The doctors are just like, we don't know what weird fetish you're involved in. We don't want to know. We don't want to know if this is normal or what. We're just going to patch you up and send you on your way. And you go, well, it's none of the doctor's business. If you walk, nowadays in America, maybe it's just in Oregon and California, but I'll go to the doctor for a foot when I busted my foot up. I go to the doctor and they ask me, do I feel safe at home? And I'm like, well, other than the ghost in my closet, that's a little dicey situation. But yeah, I feel safe at home. So the doctors do have obligations to ask you about certain things. You can go to the doctor for pretty much anything, and they'll see if you're a victim of domestic violence. I have no problem with that. I think that's totally fine for the doctors to ask. And if you think it's another business, you lie. But I mean, it's good that somebody's asking, because a lot of times people never even ask those questions. Guy walks into a hospital, no balls. The cops don't even ask. They can tell it's not like he was like, oh, I was walking and I tripped and I fell on a lawnmower. Like, they know they were removed on purpose. Don't report it. Now Gary's in jail for practicing medicine without a license. And the funniest part of this whole story, just the idea of dudes sitting around cutting each other's balls off on purpose, isn't hilarious. It's kind of gross. But Oxygen News, Oprah's main news network, the hard-hitting journalist of Oxygen News, was writing this whole story about, I got it from a couple different stories, but I'm reading the Oxygen article. Oxygen True Crime is what it's called. Because nothing says Oprah like serial killers and testicles being removed. Here is this quote at the end of this article from Oxygen News. This victim has not been named in reports. According to BuzzFeed, oh great, okay, they're involved in this too. According to BuzzFeed, his testicles were transported with him to the hospital. But it's unclear if they have been reattached. Hopefully not, because what's going to happen is he's going to wake up and he's like, oh, the nightmare is over. And he looks down, he's like, no! He has these 2 giant balls. He's like, no! He's just going to get them cut off again. Which, going back to my original thing, it's a fetish you can only do once. Wouldn't it be awful if a guy kept having them cut off and then put back on and letting them heal and then having them cut off again? Ugh. Anyways, let's move on to our next. That would be the ultimate evolution of that fetish. Castration, attachment, castration fetish. I probably just invented that, so I'm sorry, universe. Let's move on to our... Ivan's like, hey man, I'm really glad that you, said thank you to me on your podcast, but next time could you not do it on the episode that involves castration and moms exploding? Really, really appreciate the show, but pick a different episode next time. Let's go ahead and move on to our last story. Oh, quick Dead Rabbit recommends, because this was another, I was like, this is perfect for this episode. You guys have all heard of the Human Centipede, but... And the Human Centipede's okay. It's a typical, low-budget horror movie that all hinges on a gimmick. I wouldn't even rank it in like the top 100, top 500 horror movies. It's really just kind of a middling horror movie with a great gimmick. However, The Human Centipede 2 full sequence is a masterpiece of a horror movie. It is so good. And it has just these amazing elements, and all these little things just add up to this incredibly creepy narrative. The movie is about a security guard who never taught, I think he might have one line of dialogue in the whole movie. He has to sell the whole movie just by how gross and creepy he is. He is a security guard who watches the Human Centipede all day long. So he sits in an underground parking lot, and that's all he does is watch the Human Centipede. He lives with his mom, and he keeps a diary of the Human Centipede, and he's in his mind building his own Human Centipede. Tom Six is an amazing horror director, and I really want to see him do like a haunted house movie. I really want to see him do like a demon possession movie, because he just has an eye for horror. Human Centipede 2 full sequence is a masterpiece of a horror movie. There is some controversy about the ending. I will tell you this. You gotta listen. You gotta listen after the ending, and you'll get what I mean. The ending isn't the ending you think it is, but it is a great... I would put Human Centipede full sequence in probably top 20 horror movies of mine. I love that movie. It's super disgusting and very, very creepy and disturbing, and even watching the trailer, I had to turn away or kind of like flinch a couple times because it's really brutal. Sound design is amazing. Cinematography is amazing. It is great. Human Centipede 3 final sequence was okay, but coming off of the second one, like nothing can beat that. And the plot of the third one is a prison warden watches Human Centipede 1 and Human Centipede 2 and decides to make that part of his plan for punishing prisoners. And the star of Human Centipede 2, the big, gross-looking fat guy, is his assistant at the prison. Tom Six just does some weird stuff with his movies. He shows up in the third one. It's all bizarre, but Dead Rabbit recommends Human Centipede 2 full sequence. True body horror. Let's go ahead and move on to our last topic here. We're going to end this kind of around the world. A lot of these are medical reports, so we don't... You're like, great, Jason. A lot of these are medical reports, so we don't have a ton of information about where they happen for privacy reasons. I really tried looking. Then I got to the point where, as I was looking, photos started to appear, and I'm out. I'm out. So let's... these are all kind of around the world, so they've happened... This has happened everywhere. This has happened everywhere, really. This dude in New Delhi. We'll start off in New Delhi. So we're in New Delhi. This 30-year-old dude and his buddies are hanging out. Now, I don't know if they're drinking. I don't know if they're partying. I don't know how this starts. But at some point, this guy's sitting there. He's probably like hitting on some chicks. He's like, hey, what's up, girls? Yeah, dude, how you doing? Yeah, my name's whatever. I don't have a name. I'm mysterious. And while he's doing this, or whatever action he's taking place, again, I don't know. His buddies go, you know what would be funny? You see that air tire pump over there? It's not like one that you like stand on and go poof, poof, with your hands. It's like a psh, like a pump. They go, hey, you see that over there? They're like, yeah. Dude, you see him talking to that girl? Yeah, you know what would be really funny if we like put this in his butthole and turned it on, and then he would like jump up and grab his butt, and the girls would laugh because they wouldn't know what was going on. They're like, oh, that'd be hilarious. So they sneak up behind him, dude. And he's just like, hey, yeah, so, yeah, I play soccer. I mean, I play football. Wait, in India, do we call it soccer or football? And while he's trying to figure that out, they stick the air pump in his butthole. And for 1 second, they put air up into his butt. Completely obliterates his rectum. It's called rectal blowout. And I had to do all this research on this stuff. What happens is when the air is pushed out of an air pump, it becomes, in a sense, a solid. It has the physics of a solid, so it would be like if you stuck a brick up someone's butthole. And that's what it did. He falls to the ground, the girls run away. He's like, oh, what'd you guys do? And they're like, oh, we just put this up your butthole for 1 second. Take him to the hospital. The doctors say when this happens, they go, it looks like wounds we see in battlefields. He goes, some doctors like, that's weird. I saw a 74-year-old woman with a similar wound back in training. It completely just shreds your insides. He had to end up getting his colon completely removed, and now he has like a bag. And I don't know if it's one of those bags that hang out Or one of the bags inside. I don't know. But anyways, he has a bag now. So those friends must feel terrible because they're like, hey man, you want to hang out? He's like, yeah, you want to clean my bag, you jerk? And they're like, yeah, I'll clean your bag. Sorry about that. They're washing it out, putting a little Lysol in it. I don't know how they work. Anyways, the point is that he has no more colon. So you think that's bad. Your friend's sticking an air hose up your butt.